think that particular vessel is like.
Hello everyone, I welcome you all for this market engagement webinar, and let's just give ourselves 30 more seconds. We all settle down and then we start. All right, thank you everyone. My name is Khurram Lalani. I'm the team lead for Climate Finance Accelerator Pakistan program. And with me today, I'm joined by my colleague, Blanca, who's the project manager for Pakistan. And we welcome you all for this market engagement webinar that we're doing to introduce the CFA Pakistan program cycle 3. And we've done the 2 cycles in the past, cycle 1, cycle 2, and we've received tremendous response around that. And we hope to answer any queries, any clarifications that you may have. And I am going to hand over now to my colleague Blanca to take us through today's agenda, and then we start the presentation. Over to you, Blanca.
Thank you very much, Khurram. Hello, everyone. And yeah, great to be part of this meeting today. Thank you, everyone, for saving some time in your for sure busy agendas to join us for this important space for us, mainly to engage with you and make sure that we can support you through the launch of this third phase, and in particular for those project proponents who are interested in participating in this third phase, that we answer any questions or queries that you may have with regards to the process itself, the application process, but also as to the idea of CFA and how can CFA help you. So in terms of today, the idea would be to give you a brief introduction of the CFA program, what CFA has done already in Pakistan and what the sort of focus in Pakistan, and how we work in particular with regards to the sectors, etc. And then we will go through the CFA selection criteria, so then you have an overview of the sort of evaluation criteria that we have in mind when going through the applications that we received, and next steps and how to apply, so everyone knows what's going to happen in the short and medium term. Then we always want to give you some space for questions and answers, so then there is a dialogue between us and all of you who are part of this call today, and some closing remarks. So let's go to the next slide, please. Next slide as well. So before we just go to the sort of like the content of this webinar, just a quick reminder that this webinar at the moment, as you may have already seen, is recorded. The idea for it to be recorded is that it can be then used by others who cannot attend the meeting today, and make sure that any questions or comments that are shared or are responded today, they have access to that information. Please ensure that your name is displayed correctly, so then we can name you if you raise your hand whenever you want to tell us anything in terms of the questions and answers. And we would really like you to remain with your microphones muted, so then we have a smooth webinar and we can basically cover everything without any interference from any open microphone. If you experience any technical issues, there is a chat function, and actually the name is Julia Landy, not Jenny Hudson. Apologies for that mistake. So Julia Landy with the Ricardo logo that you see, you can contact her for any IT issues. Next slide. Well, for those of you who are not familiarized with the CFA, the Climate Finance Accelerator, this is a program that actually started a long time ago, almost 10 years ago. So at the very beginning of, in 2017, there were already some countries and some people interested in the concept of creating a program that basically accelerates the pipeline of projects, of climate-related projects in many parts of the world. And the idea actually started to develop with some pilot projects that occurred in Nigeria. Also, some important events in London, and by 2020 and until now, we have until 2024. There's been this Climate Finance Accelerator program, 4 years program funded by the UK government and mainly providing support to more than 10 countries throughout the world, in the various world regions, including Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And here we are with the third phase in CFA Pakistan, and looking forward to what it will bring us. Next phase, next slide. So yes, what is the Climate Finance Accelerator for those of you who have never heard of this program? Hopefully not many, but in any case, it's always good to bring in new people. So the idea is to offer technical assistance to projects in specific locations. So in 10, we're currently working in 10 countries, including Pakistan. And the idea is to offer this technical assistance basically to support ideas or generation of ideas and startups, if they are, basically to come up with a bankable idea that can get the interest, can gain the interest from investors and start working and having a market that creates some positive cash flows for this project to actually be economically viable and therefore have a positive climate impact. So ideally reducing CO2 emissions through this new business model. How we do it? So we sort a pipeline of bankable projects. We provide them with technical assistance, but we also at the same time create an enabling function. So basically have some networking activities with financiers, both national and international financiers that are willing to invest in low carbon projects. That gives us the opportunity to basically do a matchmaking process between the supply and the demand, and making sure that there's that everything that is required to come up with a bankable and investable idea happens in something that we call it roadshow events, and this would be the end of the cycle, providing a space for both projects and financiers to connect, meet, and have useful discussions for investing in those projects. Next slide. So in terms of the core phases of the CFA, of the Climate Finance Accelerator, we have the following. We have the scoping exercise, so understanding what is the demand and supply within the country. This is something that for Pakistan, we are now very much familiarized thanks to all the work that Kuram and the team have been doing. And actually at the moment, it's not just about knowing the market, but also being part of it. So there are very strong relationships with key stakeholders that within the climate finance ecosystem in Pakistan. We also have the in-country delivery, and this is exactly where we are at the moment. So as Kuram said before, this is the third time that we are doing an in-country delivery in Pakistan, meaning that the first and the second ones were actually very successful. And this relates to the selection of projects, the capacity building, so this technical assistance and the event that I was referring to in the previous slide. We also have some international events. So here we mentioned the London event. This is an event, for instance, that occurred last year this time, and actually there were some projects from Pakistan that were invited to this London event. So it was an international event on climate finance. But we also held another event very recently this year in LATAM. So it was a LATAM focused event, mainly creating a webinar, and all. It wasn't a webinar, it was an event of, I think, up to 1 day of many interesting people from the ecosystem of the 3 countries that we're working on at the moment in Latin America. So those are Mexico, Colombia, and Peru. And it's it was received quite well and with a lot of success within the region. We also have some ongoing activities, which is related to embedding a permanent climate finance accelerator in each of the countries that we work with. So the idea of coming up with a structure, governance structure that actually settles down the idea of this program, of this technical assistance program, and make sure that it continues beyond 2024. And some knowledge products, which are related to the knowledge that everyone that participates in the Climate Finance Accelerator actually is creating with regards to understanding the various emerging markets that we are working on at the moment. Next slide, please. So yeah, some figures. So in terms of achievements today, actually this slide needs to be updated on a daily basis. So apologies if the figures that you currently see are not the most up to date, but I think they're from at least updated from last month. So yes, in terms of country outreach, as I said, 10 countries are currently part of the program with more than 24 calls for proposals. So I think now we are at 26, including this one. We've received over 1,500 projects in terms of applications with almost 65 billion investment figures in terms of the applications. However, as you now know, so one thing is the projects that we received, the other thing is the projects that are actually selected to be part of the Climate Finance Accelerator within those countries. So this is the pipeline. And the pipeline of projects, the family that we created, goes up to 218 projects selected with over $3 billion US investment. I think we have an issue with this slide deck, but in any case, I can continue. So the other thing that we are looking at as well is the amount of webinars and technical assistance programs that we provide, and those ones are in the figure below. So over 4,000 event attendees, both in person and online, with more than 200 financial institutions engaged and almost 400 policymakers engaged throughout the whole program, which I think is quite important. Also very relevant, the investments unlocked to date, so 30 deals closed, and I think this figure actually has changed during the past 2 weeks, and with a figure of unlocked finance of almost, I think we're getting to 1 billion, but we can see this in a second. So yes, and 300, almost 400 million total value of deals, which is not bad at all. Next slide, please. Yes, so in terms of the benefits, so as you can see from the figures that I presented before, is quite clear. So is this Climate Finance Accelerator is a technical assistance program that actually helps you to access to potential investors. However, before doing that, we have some capacity building activities that basically enhance the idea of the project that you're currently working at, to making sure that the project actually looks in a very good shape from an investment point of view. And once this is done, we create this, we convene these networks that are already actually created in Pakistan, and making sure that the projects have raising profiles in front of those investors, ideally to achieve climate mitigation and other sustainable development goals. Next slide, please. So yes, in order to have a quick go in terms of the CFA in Pakistan, I pass the word to Khurram. So please, Khurram, go ahead.
Thank you, Blanca. So I'm just going to quickly come in around CFA in Pakistan. Next slide, please. Right. So I think we've got, as Blanca alluded, that we've got CFA, which is a very global kind of an initiative. And again, coming to Pakistan, we've got this tailor-made in terms of, we've done quite a bit of research in and around our updated NDCs, our National Climate Change Policy, our National Adaptation Plan. The idea is we want to make sure that we have, 3 or 4 areas that we target in. The first is, which is a core strength of CFA, is to establish a pipeline of bankable low carbon projects. And again, we're going to discuss more about what is the selection criteria when it comes to bankable low carbon projects. But the idea is that this is where CFA is most focused on. Then we are engaged with policymakers. During the last 2 cycles, we have received a tremendous response from the policymakers, both at the federal level as well as at the provincial levels where we operate. And the idea is to make sure that we have got an excellent ownership within the ecosystem, so that everyone recognizes the kind of work that CFA is doing, and with the help of projects. The projects are essentially the ones who champion the cause of CFA and really take the banner forward. We've done a climate finance landscape mapping study, and if anyone is interested, that's available online. You can go and really read up on the kind of work and landscaping that we have done in and around Pakistan's climate finance ecosystem. And then we convene investor roadshow event. The idea is that the technical capacity building, once it is built and established, we showcase those ideas to investors, and the investors and projects do a matchmaking process, really take the conversation forward. So just to illustrate this, this is one question which comes up to us very often, that does CFA invest in projects itself? So no, we don't really invest in projects ourselves. But what we try and do is to establish a pipeline of bankable low carbon projects, and then make sure that investors, we hold those convening forums where investors and projects come together, really discuss kind of initiative that the projects are working on, and see if there is anything that a deal could be mobilized. We don't really invest in projects ourselves. This is a matchmaking and technical capacity building project. Next slide, please. So I think just around the last time we've had two cycles. The last cycle that we completed, we've had 8 projects: afforestation, waste management, e-mobility, climate tech also, and then agriculture. But this, the idea is to illustrate that we are pretty sector agnostic, and what we try and do is not really focus on one or two sectors. Our idea is very, very broad, and anyone who has a good project potential and is working within the space of climate mitigation is welcome to apply. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to quickly discuss on the CFA selection criteria. Next slide. So we've got 4 very important criteria. I'm going to go one by one. And I think the idea is that when you're applying to CFA, it is very important to keep these 4 things in mind. What we're looking at is we're looking at a climate mitigation potential, how much of GHG avoidance, emissions avoidance, and mitigation potential that each and every project has when it applies to CFA. We are also looking at project maturity, as well as financial structuring and gender equality. I'm just going to discuss one by one all these project selection criteria. Next slide. So when it comes to climate mitigation potential, I think what we are most focused is that every project, whether it is a renewable energy project or an e-mobility or an agriculture project, I think what we are primarily looking at is that the projects must be designed to achieve measurable results in either direct or facilitated emissions reductions. So if your project is somewhere around where it is not really contributing directly to GHG emissions reductions, then we are probably not suited because our capacity building is tailored around climate mitigation potential. So any project that you're working on, I think when it comes to us, we look very carefully if a project has a climate mitigation potential, if it is reducing greenhouse gases emissions, whether directly or facilitated emissions. Next slide. Project maturity is also very important to us. So what we mean by project maturity is that we are looking for projects who are at least in the pre-feasibility stage. We preferably would want to have a look at your supporting documents, which includes pre-feasibility studies, market studies, business plans, financial models, engineering drawings. We're not saying that every project needs to have all these documents, but I think some document that sort of has a credibility to your project that this project is little advanced. If the project is only at an idea stage, then we are perhaps not the right partners. So if a project is just an idea stage and sponsors are thinking that we are going to work on this idea, then perhaps we are not really rightly suited for support. We are looking for a little bit of mature projects coming to us. And if you've got a project who's looking for scalability, who's looking for large scale investment raising appetite, then this is where perhaps we are most suited. Next slide. When it comes to financial structuring, we're looking at projects who have a minimum financing investment needs of $4 million and above. So if your project is $500,000 or $1 million, in that case, we do look at those projects, but primarily our preference would be tilted towards those projects who are looking for financing of minimum $4 million and above. If there is a project which requires financing of 25, 30, 50, $100 million, that is where, again, our synergies are quite aligned with the sponsors. And we're very happy to support and engage in making sure that your project becomes bankable and presented to the investors in the right manner. As I said, smaller projects may be considered. And if you are a company or an organization who are working on multiple initiatives, so for example, textile company, and you are working on a renewable energy facility plus biogas, energy facility, or a heat exchange recovery, operations. You can all club them together and you can apply under one banner under your company. And we'll be happy to look into those smaller structures, but the cumulative size of those structures should become more than $4 million or above. Along the lines, I think what we are most focused on is to have a very good business model that generates commercial viability. So we are not really looking for grant-based projects. This entire accelerator model is not fit for philanthropic projects. If you have a philanthropic project in mind, then perhaps this is not where the CFA comes in. CFA would come in where you have got an excellent commercial proposition and a commercial viability that you can demonstrate, and we'll be happy to support and take a closer look. Next slide. And last but not the least, I think very important to us is the GESI component, the gender equality and social inclusion component. So every project that applies to CFA, if you are keen to apply to this round of CFA, make sure that you've got a good GESI outlook in place. And you need to demonstrate what are the kind of gender equality benefits that your project would accrue to society, and what social inclusion benefits your projects will accrue to society. All projects must have a do no harm approach and positive social impacts. We don't really have any screening criteria other than the fact that we try and evaluate if your project will have a good gender equality and social inclusion benefits. Next slide. So next steps and how to apply. I am going to hand it over to my colleague, Blanca. Blanca, over to you.
Yes, more than happy. So yes, next slide, please. Very important. So what are the sort of next steps? So as you may have seen, we have already officially launched phase 3 in Pakistan. The idea of this phase is actually to go from now until the end of October. And what are the sort of things that are going to happen? So first, the launching activities. So this includes, for instance, this webinar, but also some key meetings with particularly important stakeholders that we have already engaged with at previous phases, so that we make sure that everyone is in place, not just the projects, but also investors and other key actors are involved from the very beginning in this new cycle. We are also going to as we have already opened the call for proposals, so this is going to remain open until the end of May, so 31st of May. Hopefully everyone here is already familiarized with the ways on how to apply, but basically you can see the call for proposal steps. So here we have the link, the CFA Pakistan webpage, and I think Sarosh may have already included, or otherwise maybe Kuram, you can include the link in the chat while I go through the slide, and then you can actually submit your applications via an online portal. And always feel free to raise any questions first today via in this space that we've facilitated, but also via the email that we provide you in these slides. There will be an evaluation process. The evaluation, as per Kuram's presentation, is going to consist of up to 4 kind of like items or phases that we look at, and this means that we take a bit of, so it takes us a bit of time to actually go through all the project documents, and given that the number of application is increasing since we go one cycle to another, so that takes us a bit of time, but ideally by June we will have a list of successful applicants that will actually be part officially part of CFA 3 in Pakistan. The capacity building and workshops will go through July and September. So we've seen that it's important to provide with a room of like between 2.5 to 3.5 months to projects, not to only absorb all the information that we share via the capacity building, but also to have some space to implement those ideas or those lessons and those inputs from our experts into their project documents that they work with throughout the capacity building phase. And last but not least, very important, the Investor Roadshow event that is going to happen in October 2024. Next slide, please. Q&A. So here, the idea, as we said before, is to give you, and we've done it quite well compared to the last time. Congratulations, Kuram, and to myself. So yes, we have some time now to actually, give you the floor and try to answer as many questions as possible. We've been doing that throughout the chat, but more than happy to see some hands raised, and we will give you the floor. And feel free to unmute yourself once we call your name. In the meantime, Kura, maybe you want to say something about the latest roadshow events that you held. I think it was 2 months ago, and I wasn't part of it in person, but what I've heard is that it was a great success.
Yes, so I think that's a good point to highlight over here. We've got in the first cohort, we've got 2 projects who went to attend who attended the London event as well. London event is a showcase event where projects from across the globe, around almost 10 odd countries, they come and present to a very wider international global investor audience. And 2 of our Pakistani projects had gone on and attended the London event. The last year, we did not have a London event, but despite that, we had an excellent cohort. And the last investor roadshow event that Blanca, you mentioned, we had around more than 75 institutional participants. So pretty much the entire banking industry was there, private equity, venture capital. What we have tried to do is to really be able to coalesce support from all the investor activities and be able to make sure that all the large corporates as well as investors are present in one room, so that when projects present to them, they really get a good mileage out of it. So it was a great success. 2 days of programming, more than 75 institutional investors, and 8 projects. They received a 1-to-1 feedback as well as an opportunity to present to a wider cohort. So all in all, very high profile event, and we were able to raise quite a lot of project profiles also. So every project that participated, I think we were able to elevate their profile to make sure that their project benefits are right up front presented to the audiences. So I stop here, but I see a couple of hand raised. So Etizaz, maybe you want to go?
Yes, I'm from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Forest Department. I just wanted to ask regarding the previous phase of this project in which we had applied through the predefined forms, the formats. So, this phase 3 is in continuation of that, or this is another phase we have to reapply again?
So Adizaz, this is a new cycle. Every project is going to apply again. And again, all the projects will go through a project selection criteria. We are going to announce it's a very competitive cycles that we've had in the past. And just to give you an idea, last time also 60 projects applied, 8 got selected, and hopefully I think we're looking at the same numbers. Every year we're able to support 7 to 9 projects at max. And you can expect the same this time around also.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? I just want to again, bring the point to consideration that CFA does not really invest in projects itself. What we do is this is a capacity building and technical assistance program, and we try and work with the projects for the next 3 to 4 months. We try and make their project bankable, make sure that they are ready to present to the wider investor audiences, and once they are ready, then we organize investor roadshow event, and we make that matchmaking possible. So just to give an abundant clarity that this is not something, please don't expect CFA to really mobilize financing or invest in any project itself. I see Sahib Wazir's hand up.
Yes, hi. I just had a quick question regarding the business modeling and the climate mitigation potential you mentioned. Now, regarding my project in the hospitality sector, I've got some environmental assessment reports made by individuals, not by organizations, because they have different process of getting it stamped and approved. So I just wanted to know what kind of, when you say a business plan, is it just needs to be a business plan provided by one of our CFOs, or you need it authorized by one of these auditing firms or something? And same goes for the environmental reports. Could a consultant be good enough for that report, or do we need like departments to approve them?
So I think, Sahib, all we are looking at is your project maturity. So whether that project maturity is demonstrated through an individual consulting report or through a firm consulting report, I think that doesn't really matter to us. What really matters to us is to see that you have had some progress along the lines, along your project journey, and you are at an advanced stage where you're thinking about your project, making sure that you've got a good thought process behind it, and some groundwork, some spade work done.
All right, fine, thank you.
Also to add, so when it comes to the, because there's also a question here in the chat around the evaluation criteria and mitigation. So when it comes to mitigation, and I think, Sahib, you also mentioned that you have some documents that basically accredit the impact, the positive impact of your project from an environmental point of view. What we ask for is a clear understanding of how the project actually reduces the CO2 emissions that will occur on a business as usual scenario. So as long as there is a rationale behind the project that is clear, we can also actually help you understanding and evaluating and even quantifying the mitigation impact of your project. So yeah, no need to have an official certification of the mitigation potential of the project, but very crucial to have a rationale behind the project that clearly sets out the mitigation potential.
I'm going to take Blanca one question in the chat by Khizr Pasha, and he's asking about the financing avenues available and the financing products available to qualifying projects. So Khizr Saab, this is more in line with the requirements of a project. So it really differs on a project to project basis. There might be a project that requires an equity investment. There might be a project which requires concessionary financing at the beginning, or maybe just a market commercial debt instrument. So I think it really depends on case-to-case basis. Our task is to make sure that we understand the project, our advisors, and work along with the project and try and come up with a very curated financial structuring proposition that is most suited to the project. And then once we sort of analyze the kind of requirements that we have from project to project, we make sure that when we reach out to market, we reach out to the right individuals, so that right individuals can sort of interact with the project. So it's just a long process on our part, where we try and tailor make, whatever the project feedback that we have around financial structuring. We work with them. We try and clarify their proposition. And once we have a clear value proposition, we try and invite the right stakeholders for them to interact with. I hope that sort of, answers your question. I'm not sure, Ibrahim Sab, when you say TRL level, what does that mean?
Technical readiness level. So this refers to the market, so to the maturity of the technology. So here, yes, in terms of the maturity stage, what we're looking for typically is for between 6 and 8. Something like that. But of course, this really depends on first the maturity of the market within the country, because in some cases this also affects the technical readiness level. And second, the typology, the type of technology and the potential. So we might also consider some 6 levels, maturity levels, if there is a strong potential or this has been successful elsewhere.
Zara, you want to comment?
Yes, so my question is that if a project has an internal feasibility study prepared by the organization, however, it has not been externally verified or vetted as of May, and that is the deadline for submission, how do we prove its commercial viability? Do we have to submit any vetting or any external vetting before submission?
No, as I said, you don't really require any external vetting. I think all we are looking at is that a company or an organization has really thought about the project. So whether it is internally thought out, obviously, I mean, if it is externally vetted, then it is certainly at a more advanced stage,
Okay.
but there is no requirement as such.
And how do we prove its commercial viability?
Sorry, I lost you there.
So do we have to submit numbers and a complete feasibility study with the commercial aspects of ROI and the returns and what we're looking at the project later on, or just a scope of work with its prospects is enough in the beginning?
No, I think, as much details as you can provide to us. So I think, all we are trying to assess is your technical maturity levels. And I think if you can do that by providing more in-depth analysis and, hands-on financial models, I think that's something that's going to be taken positively when it comes to project selection
Okay.
criteria.
Just to add there, so on the application form, there are some fields for specific questions with regards to the financial numbers and kind of like the outputs, output figures from a typical financial model. However, if you think those figures do not really tell the whole story or the whole potential of the of your projects, which in some cases might happen, we do also have a look, as per Kuram's comment, at the financial models and the and any further documentation. So there is an option where you can add any attachments that you may wish to send us, and mainly to have a space to tell us the story of the of the potentially successful project that you have in hand.
Thank you.
I see Vikas Nazir Awan's question. So can one organization submit more than one proposal? Absolutely, you can. So again, Asad Hassan, I think, our purpose is to sort of, match make this entire process. We don't really commit. I think, our aim is to invite as many investors as we can, and to make sure that, projects speak to the right investors. But beyond that, we really can't commit, and we don't really commit that anyone who's invited will actually invest in a project. Khizr Pasha, can a financial institution submit a proposal for own climate impact reduction? Absolutely. I think that could be a great project. And if there is a cogent proposition in terms of any technologies to be used or any financing to be mobilized, we'll be more than happy to support. Or even I'm sure that you have clients that you interact with, the large corporates or the mid-tier corporates. I think this proposition is very fit for mid-tier corporates. So SMEs or the mid-tier corporates who are well past their initial hurdles, I think can definitely take a lot of value out of this program. Zara, I'm not sure if this is a new hand or an old hand, but please feel free to come in. You're on mute, Zara. I think there is no hand here. All right.
Yeah, that was the previous one. Sorry.
No problem.
So while others come in, just to tell you a bit more about the CFA elsewhere. So at the moment, we're finalizing one of the cycles. So there were also 3 cycles in Colombia with the in-country event that just happened last week. With all project proponents and investors being part of within the same room. In South Africa, we're currently delivering the capacity building phase. In Mexico, we have just closed our 3rd cycle with a very successful in-country event. In Turkey, capacity building phase as well. And the same happened in Egypt, in Peru, in-country event happening in May, and the same is going to happen in Vietnam as well. So in-country event in May, at the end of May. And then Uganda, we just had our first in-country events some weeks ago. Also very successful with very interesting projects. And then, as I said before, from an international or multi-country point of view, we held the LATAM regional events in March with over 300 participants, and a very successful event as well. Back to questions. So there is this question from Wakas, so saying, can the project be product-based or policy-based projects are also allowed, like climate modeling projects? Yes, they are. Actually, climate modeling projects at the moment, they do have very successful business models, because more and more people, or more and more companies, and even well, of course, the public sector, but in particular the private sector, is willing to invest in those climate modeling projects. So therefore there is a potential, an economic potential for those projects. So yes, do feel free to share your application with us, because we've seen some potentially successful stories already in some other countries.
So thank you, everyone. I think this sort of sums it up. We tried answering as many questions as we can, but if you want to write to us, or if there are any additional queries, please feel free to reach out at cfapakistan.com, or you can also reach out by email, pakistan@climatefinanceaccelerator.co.uk. And we're going to put our email in the chat box also. The last date is 31st of May. So make sure that you take full advantage of this cycle, and if there are any queries, we'll be happy to support and happy to take your project queries forward. With that, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Blanca, for joining us, and look forward to all your project proposals. Thank you.